My name is Dr. Eris Thorne. I am on the list.
Excuse me, ma'am.
The flash of cameras wasn't for her. The marble steps leading up to the Helmsworth Foundation Gala gleamed under the floodlights, every inch of the facade screaming exclusivity. Aria Cole adjusted the collar of her custom black suit, the silk catching a ripple of cold night air. Her name was etched on the invitation clutched between two fingers embossed in gold. The doorman didn't even look at it. "Ma'am," he said, a faint, polished smile anchored on his lips like a mask. "This is a private event." She extended the invitation steady. His eyes slid over it, then over her skin. A pause, a tightening at the corner of his mouth. One step back, subtle, practiced. A man in a navy tuxedo brushed past her, laughing. "Even the guests look different this year," he murmured to his date. The guard's radio crackled. A woman's clipped voice came through. "Not on the list." Aria heard it like a gavel. "That's impossible," she said. Her voice didn't shake. It cut clean through the music spilling from inside. The guard didn't blink. "This is not the kind of place you just walk into." That line sliced deeper than the cold. A single line meant to make everything small. Her company, her title, her years of grinding into spaces like this. Behind him, champagne flutes clinked. Inside, her board members were laughing. Without her, the red velvet rope stayed down. Flashbulbs popped again. The cameras caught the moment her hand tightened around the invitation, and then someone from inside, the chairman himself, stepped to the door, smirking as if the night had been waiting for this. Everything around her went very still. The first thing she noticed was the sound of laughter. Not wild or careless, polished, practiced, the kind of laughter that belonged to people who never had to knock twice. The marble steps reflected the floodlights like glass. Aria's heels clicked a steady rhythm as she climbed. Her invitation, thick cardstock with gold lettering, was warm from her grip. The doorman's posture stiffened as she approached. "Good evening," she said, calm and deliberate. His gaze moved from her face to the card, then lingered on her skin. "Ma'am, I'll need to check the list." "It's there," she replied. He tapped his earpiece. "Name?" "Aria Cole, Chief Executive Officer, Cole Dynamics." A faint buzz of his radio. A clipped voice, "I'm not on the list." She felt the air shift, the way it does when a room decides something without saying it. "That's not possible," she said. Behind her, a couple in sequined black brushed past. The woman's perfume was heavy, citrus cutting the night. The man glanced at Aria like she was a glitch in the scenery. The guard's voice was smooth, rehearsed. "This is a private event, Miss Cole." Her jaw locked. "I was invited." The chairman appeared at the top of the stairs, tuxedo pristine, glass of champagne in hand. His smile was a weapon, polite enough to disarm, sharp enough to draw blood. "Well," he said, looking down at her, "there seems to have been a mistake." Her fingers tightened on the card. "A mistake?" His smirk widened. "These things happen. I'm sure you understand." Guests nearby pretended not to hear, but their silence leaned in. A woman's pearls trembled against her collarbone as she looked away. "I built 1/3 of your revenue this quarter," Aria said. The chairman raised his glass. "And we're grateful. But this evening is particular." The guard's hand rested lightly on the rope. That gesture said more than the words. Aria's throat burned, not from shame. Rage, clean and controlled. She scanned the line of cameras across the street. A tabloid photographer raised his lens. She turned to leave. Click. The flash caught the moment her jaw set. Shoulders straight, invitation still in hand. Behind her, someone whispered, "They really let anyone try these days." She didn't look back. The marble steps echoed each retreating step, steady, unbroken. The chairman lowered his glass, eyes following her. The velvet rope stayed down, and the night swallowed the sound of her departure. The boardroom smelled like citrus polish and quiet power. The table stretched the length of the room, its surface lacquered to a shine that reflected everything except her anger. Aria stood at the head, waiting. A soft click. The chairman entered, surrounded by two other executives. Their laughter dripped down the hallway like perfume before they even stepped inside. When they sat, no one invited her to do the same. "Ms. Cole," the chairman said, folding his hands with calculated ease. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. She didn't respond. Her invitation to the gala lay on the table between them. No creases, no apologies. A board member cleared his throat. I think we can all agree last night was unfortunate. Her voice was low, measured. Yes, another said quickly. A misunderstanding. These events are complicated. Guest lists change. Logistics get messy. Aria stared at him. I was on the guest list. My name was removed after I helped fund half of it. The chairman tilted his head, almost amused. We have no evidence of that. You have cameras, emails, a written invitation. A silence stretched, deliberate. It wasn't the silence of guilt. It was the silence of a machine closing ranks. An older board member adjusted his cufflinks. Let's not escalate something that could be resolved with a statement. A neutral statement. We value diversity. We regret the confusion. We move forward. Her fingers tapped the table once. Neutrality isn't neutral when the injury isn't. The air thickened. The chairman leaned forward. Be careful how you frame this, Aria. We wouldn't want unnecessary damage to the Foundation's reputation or yours. The words landed like glass against concrete. You're threatening me, she said. He smiled without blinking. No, advising. A woman at the far end spoke, voice clipped. This isn't personal. It's strategic. There are donors involved, optics. If you escalate, it becomes something we can't control. And when things get loud, careers break. Whose careers? She asked. No one answered. The chairman reached for his pen, signing something that didn't need her name. We'll issue the statement by noon. You'll refrain from public comment. That's best for everyone. For everyone, she repeated, the words thin in her mouth. The projector screen behind them flickered with upcoming gala footage, smiling faces, polished speeches. Not hers, Aria stood. The scrape of her chair was louder than anything else in the room. Every gaze tracked her movements without meeting her eyes. You built your image on inclusion, she said. And you locked the door the second it mattered. The chairman didn't look up. We opened the doors for everyone who belonged. The sentence was casual. The damage was surgical. Aria left the invitation on the table. It sat there like evidence no one planned to touch. The hallway outside was colder than the night at the gala. Behind her, the door shut with the soft finality of a verdict. The video was 31 seconds long. The sound came first, cameras clicking, muffled music spilling from the gala's open doors, then the chairman's voice. This is not the kind of place you just walk into. The clip spread overnight. A bystander had filmed the exchange on their phone, posted it with a single caption. She built their empire. They wouldn't let her in. By morning, the footage had millions of views. Aria watched it alone in her office. No music, no commentary, just the frame freezing on her hand gripping the gold-embossed invitation. Her own silence had gone viral. A notification bar filled the corner of her screen. Calls from journalists, investors, strangers, old colleagues who had forgotten her number until this morning. The door opened without knocking. James, the company's public relations head, walked in with the tight, neutral face of a man trying to hold a collapsing wall together. You've seen it, he said. Yes. They're framing it as a misunderstanding. Our board is coordinating with the Foundation's communications team. They're trying to contain it before it turns into... It already turned, she said. He glanced at her screen. They're saying it wasn't about race. They always say that first. James exhaled through his teeth. Some donors are calling. A few are pulling out. Others are waiting to see which way the wind blows. Her phone lit again. News ticker. Arrests made at protests. Outside Helmsworth Foundation Gala. James lowered his voice. They'll push for a joint statement. They'll want you to sign it. Something vague, diversity, unity, healing, the usual. Aria closed the laptop. I won't sign anything that erases what happened. Then they'll bury you. Her eyes sharpened. Let them try. The walls of the office hummed with the sound of incoming calls. A producer's voice came through the speakerphone. Ms. Cole, would you like to comment on what happened at the gala? She didn't answer. News anchors spoke over split screens. One used words like alleged incident. Another called it an unfortunate misunderstanding. A third referred to her as a guest who may not have been properly credentialed. The erasure was fast, Clean. Practiced. James rubbed his temple. This is how they do it. They drown the truth under polite language until it sounds like nothing happened. Her gaze didn't move from the dark screen. Then I'll make sure they can't. Aria, I'm not negotiating with people who lock the door in my face. He hesitated. You'll need proof. A strategy. If you go alone, they'll crush you before this hits week 2. She finally turned to him. I've spent years walking into rooms they said weren't made for me. I know how to fight quietly. Now I'll do it loudly. James didn't argue. He knew the machine they were up against. Outside, the city's noise rose like a tide. Sirens chanting. Distant camera shutters. On another screen, a reporter said, "This may be the first real crack in the Helmsworth Foundation's pristine image." Aria stood by the window, looking down at the crowd building below. For the first time in days, the night wasn't silent. The story was no longer theirs to bury. It had already escaped. The envelope was cream, thick and deliberate. No logo, just her name in embossed black. It waited on her desk like a blade wrapped in velvet. Aria slid the letter out slowly. The first line was clinical. This correspondence serves as formal notice. Defamation. Legal action. Demands for retraction. They didn't even pretend to negotiate. They intended to intimidate. James stood across from her, arms crossed, jaw tight. They move faster than I expected. They always do, she said. The letter cited false representations, damage to reputation, and potential financial losses. It framed the gala as a private donor event with restricted access. It named her as the aggressor. James leaned forward. They're positioning this as you trying to force entry. Aria laughed once, low and sharp. I was on the guest list. They'll say the list was provisional, that it was a clerical error, that they had no obligation to admit anyone who wasn't cleared, which is exactly the point, she said. A knock. A woman entered. Impeccable suit, briefcase, civil rights attorney. Selena Price. Selena didn't shake hands. She opened her file and scanned the letter with practiced boredom. Standard intimidation package. They want you silent. They won't get it, Aria said. Selena looked up. Then you need to understand what's coming. They'll bury you in paperwork. They'll bleed you with process. They'll make it about everything except what happened. You'll be painted as a liability, not a victim. James shifted uncomfortably. Their legal team's a fortress. Selena didn't look away from Aria. But fortresses crack if the light hits right. They have media, donors, politicians. James said. They also have emails, Selena replied. Footage, staff logs, communications between the chairman and the event security. And if even one of those shows intent, their fortress is a paper wall. The room went quiet. The printer hummed in the corner, faint and steady. Aria folded the letter once, then twice, and placed it back on the desk. I won't retract. Selena nodded slowly. Then understand this won't be quick. They'll try to humiliate you again. Not on marble steps this time, but in hearings, in op-eds, in whispers. You'll lose some allies. You'll bleed time and money. You'll watch people you trusted choose comfort over truth. Aria didn't flinch. Then let them choose, James exhaled. What's our first move? Selena closed the folder. Preserve everything. Every message. Every photo. Every time they called you a liability. We build quietly, then strike loud. Good, Aria said. Selena stood. And one more thing. Don't respond to them directly. They want your reaction more than your silence. A calm woman terrifies them more than an angry one. The attorney left. James looked at Aria. They're coming for you. Her answer was immediate. Then they'll find I don't break, outside. Reporters gathered like vultures circling an unburied story. Inside, the letter lay on her desk, a weapon meant to silence. She had already decided to turn it into evidence. Silence at the restaurant was different from the boardroom. Warmer, older, it carried the weight of every unspoken warning her father had ever given. Aria sat across from him, untouched plate cooling between them. The city outside was loud, but the booth was carved out like a quiet confession. He poured her a cup of tea. His hands were slower now, but steady. You haven't eaten? I'm not hungry, she said. He nodded once. Neither was your grandmother the night she was denied entry to a hospital lobby. Aria exhaled through her nose. This isn't the same. Yes, he said, calm and flat. It is. Her phone buzzed again on the table. She didn't touch it. The notifications stacked endlessly. Canceled sponsorships, polite regrets from allies, investors, reconsidering their involvement. They're pulling away, he said. They always do when it gets uncomfortable. He leaned back, the wood of the booth creaking. You spent years convincing them you belonged in their rooms. You forgot those rooms weren't built for you. Aria's fingers curled around the edge of the table. I built some of those rooms, and they'll burn them down before they hand them over. For a moment, neither spoke. The restaurant hummed softly with clinking glasses and background music, like the world hadn't changed. James had sent her another message earlier. 3 sponsors withdrawn. 2 are asking for distance statements. PR's panicking. She hadn't replied. Her father's voice cut through the noise. They're trying to wear you down before the real fight starts. I'm not quitting. He didn't smile. He didn't soften. Fighting costs. You think it's just headlines and lawyers. It's sleep, trust, people you thought would stand next to you. She met his eyes. I know. They'll say they support you in private, then sit down when the cameras turn on. I know. He poured himself more tea, then stopped being surprised. It'll make you sharper. A waiter passed. Her father lowered his voice. This isn't new, Aria. It's just louder now. The weight behind his words wasn't bitterness. It was muscle memory, generational. The restaurant door opened briefly, letting in a gust of cold air. A couple entering looked at her like they recognized her face from the news. Whisper, a glance, another fracture. Aria straightened. They tried to erase me in one night. I won't let them win. Her father nodded once. Then you'll bleed on your feet, not your knees. She stared at the untouched tea in front of her. Somewhere behind the clatter of silverware, she heard the machine of power grinding. Slow, deliberate, merciless. Her father's tone softened just enough to be steel under silk. Remember, they don't fear the noise you make. They fear the control you keep while making it. The phone buzzed again. Another lost deal. Another fracture. She didn't flinch. This was the part where most people folded. She didn't. The newsroom lights were cold, white, and unblinking. Aria sat across from Mara Lynn, a senior investigative journalist whose reputation made corporations flinch before they spoke. Mara's voice was even. Her questions were sharper than the microphones between them. They think this will pass, Mara said, but you're not letting it. Aria didn't lean back. They locked me out of a building I helped pay for. Mara studied her. You want to go on record? I want the truth to be louder than their statements. A producer hovered at the door, whispering updates into a headset. The leak had become a national story. Protests grew. Sponsors bailed. The chairman issued 2 statements and one carefully crafted apology that said nothing. Mara tapped her pen against the notepad. They're betting you'll settle quietly, that you'll bleed quietly, that you'll be another line in a legal file. They're wrong. Mara's expression didn't shift. You'll be naming names. That means retaliation. Aria's eyes hardened. They already retaliated. Mara pressed the recorder button. Start from the beginning. Word for word. No soft edges, Aria did. The night, the rope. The doorman. The chairman's smirk. Every moment laid out like a case file. No tremor in her voice. No apology. Mara didn't interrupt. She just wrote. When it was over, she said, We'll run it in 48 hours. Not as an opinion piece. As evidence, Aria stood. Good, but Mara didn't let her leave. Understand what happens next. They'll come after your credibility, your history, people around you. Every inch of your life becomes material. Aria met her gaze without blinking. Then they'll find nothing that justifies what they did. They don't need to find it, Mara said. They'll invent it. Stay ahead of them. Outside, James waited by the car, phone to his ear, pacing. 3 new offers for interviews, he said when she approached. 2 from networks that want to soften the story. 1 that wants to bury it under a panel debate. We don't need panels, Aria said. We need light. In the distance, a construction site was being set up for the Foundation's upcoming donor gala, a glittering distraction to recenter their narrative. James followed her stare. They're rebuilding the stage. No, she said. They're reinforcing the gate. She turned to him. Then we'll build a bigger door. He frowned. What does that mean? It means I'm done asking to be let in. The next week blurred into motion. Phone calls, meetings, strategy sessions. She secured a rival venue downtown. Glass walls, open design, floor-to-ceiling light. Invitations were drafted, not to donors who guarded their image, but to those who had been quietly pushed aside over the years. Every name she added was deliberate. Every seat accounted for. James read the draft of her opening statement. "This isn't just a gala." "No," she said. "It's a reckoning." The foundation tightened its defenses. Aria built something else entirely. Mara's story was scheduled to drop in 2 days. The fuse was already lit. The gate that once shut her out was no longer her focus. She was building a door no one could close. The building wasn't gold. It was glass, transparent, sharp-edged, nothing to hide behind. Floodlights spilled across the downtown plaza, catching on the edges of every banner, every step. Reporters crowded the entrance. Protest signs mixed with red carpet flashes. It wasn't spectacle. It was pressure concentrated and waiting to break something open. Aria stepped out of the black car without looking for cameras. The air had that particular static of nights that mattered. Her black suit was tailored to precision. No velvet rope in front of her, no guards at the door. James fell in behind her. "They're inside already. Press, activists, investors. Half their donors are here too." "Good," she said. He glanced at the crowd. "And the foundation's PR team is losing its mind online." She didn't look up at the screens, though the headlines ran in silent crawl across them.
Rival Gala challenges Helmsworth. Cole Dynamics CEO breaks silence. The night the door swung both ways. Inside,
The space was deliberate. Clean architecture. High ceilings, no exclusive sections, no guarded entrances. Tables mixed executives with artists, lawyers with janitors, donors with the people they usually ignored. No separation, no gate. Mara Lynn stood by the media table, recorder in hand, flanked by other journalists. When she saw Aria, she gave a short nod, one between people who understood that truth is a blade, not a whisper. A pianist played something slow and steady. It didn't drown anything out. It gave the silence shape. James leaned closer. "They'll be watching every word you say. Then every word will be precise." When Aria walked onto the stage, the microphones clicked alive. The room fell into that rare silence where no one fidgets. She didn't start with greetings. "I stood outside a door that I helped build," she said, voice low and unflinching, "and they told me it wasn't the kind of place I could just walk into. No music. No applause. Just the hum of attention. They told me I didn't belong at an event I funded, and they expected me to stay quiet. They expected me to swallow it, to sign their statement, to disappear into their version of the story." Her hands rested lightly on the podium. "But I have spent my entire life learning how to walk into rooms not built for me. And tonight this room isn't built for anyone. It's open." A murmur rolled through the tables. One donor shifted uncomfortably. An activist started to clap. Then the sound spread like a fuse catching fire. Aria let it happen, then cut it with silence again. The point of power is control. The point of control is gatekeeping. They built walls so they'd never have to look at who they kept out. So we built a room without walls. The cameras zoomed closer. Tonight isn't charity. It isn't optics. It's proof that every lock they built can be broken. From the far side of the room, someone entered. The chairman. No announcement. No entourage. Just presence. He moved through the crowd with a practiced smile, shaking hands with people who had already started drifting toward Aria. James stiffened. "He's here." She didn't turn. "Let him watch." The chairman reached the edge of the crowd, staying just far enough to avoid a confrontation. Reporters spotted him. Microphones turned like weapons. Mara was faster. She moved toward him. "Chairman Beckett, why attend an event hosted by the woman your foundation humiliated?" His smile thinned. "We support inclusion. We always have. This isn't a competition. It's a shared vision." Her follow-up was surgical. "Then why wasn't she allowed through your door?" His jaw tightened. The room shifted, attention splitting like light through glass. On stage, Aria didn't step down. She didn't flinch. "This isn't about me," she said into the mic. "It's about every person who's been told they were a mistake. A clerical error. A problem that needed to be contained instead of a voice that needed to be heard." They made the gate. I built the door. The applause this time didn't ripple. It thundered. Not polite. Not staged. Reporters crowded the chairman. He tried to retreat toward the exit, but the cameras followed. Mara's recorder didn't stop. James moved closer to the podium. This is bigger than us now. Aria's eyes followed the chairman, not with triumph, but precision. That's the point. The evening unfolded like a controlled burn. Activists told their stories. Investors pledged funding to projects bypassing the foundation entirely. Lawyers outlined class action strategies on live television. For years, their world had been defined by who was inside and who was out. Tonight, that binary cracked. Outside, protesters chanted. Inside, glass walls reflected faces that had never been in the same room. The chairman slipped out the side door. Cameras caught it. Reporters followed. Mara returned to Aria near the end of the night. You didn't flinch. There's nothing left to flinch from, Aria said. You know what happens next, Mara replied. Yes. The story was no longer a leak. It was a fracture line running through an entire institution. Aria stepped down from the stage through the crowd past every barrier that once defined her place. No velvet rope. No gate, only light. The first email leaked at 7:12 a.m. By 7:16, 3 more followed. Internal communications. Security directives. A memo instructing event staff to closely monitor non-donor attendees and deny entry to any unverified parties, particularly high-risk optics profiles. Her name was in the O margin. Highlighted. By 7:30, every major network was running it. Internal emails revealed deliberate exclusion. The machine that spent weeks smothering her story with polished statements had just exposed itself. Aria watched the coverage alone in her office. Not a smile, not a flicker, just stillness. The silence before something topples. James burst in, breathless. It's everywhere. They're burning down their own PR front trying to contain it. Half their donors are backing out. 3 board members have already resigned. The screen behind her split into live feeds. Protesters surrounded the foundation's headquarters. Helicopters hovered. Anchors read lines in careful tones, but their faces betrayed the shift. Control was gone. Mara Lynn's face appeared next. What we're seeing is not a misunderstanding. It's documented intent. The emails explicitly targeted CEO Aria Cole, who funded nearly a third of the gala's budget. The clip cut to the chairman. He stood outside the foundation building, drowned in microphones. For the first time, his posture wasn't a weapon. It was defense. A reporter shouted, "Did you personally authorize these directives?" He adjusted his cufflinks, voice strained. "We were protecting donor security. Was Aria Cole a threat to donor security?" Another reporter cut in. His mouth opened, closed. The silence said everything. Mara's voiceover returned. For years, the Helmsworth Foundation projected an image of inclusivity. This morning, the mask cracked. James lowered his phone. They're trying to push the blame down the chain. Security director. Event coordinator. Anyone but him. They always do, Aria said. Legal teams are scrambling. Half their staff walked out. Their crisis consultant just quit. She stood, walked toward the window. The streets below were a storm of chants, cameras, and sharpened narratives. This wasn't just her story anymore. It had become a mirror, forcing everyone to look. James leaned on the desk. If this keeps rolling, he's finished. No, Aria said. He's already finished. He just hasn't realized it yet. At noon, the chairman returned to the microphones. This time, his PR team hovered behind him like a collapsing wall. His voice cracked once. We regret. The crowd cut him off with shouts. Reporters didn't let him breathe between questions. He tried to steer the narrative, but the emails were still scrolling live on a screen behind him. His own words drowned him. Mara stood near the front, recorder raised. Will you resign? He ignored her. Will you step down from your position as chairman of the Helmsworth Foundation? She repeated louder. The cameras turned. The silence spread. He blinked. A single stutter in a career built on never faltering. No comment. It wasn't a refusal. It was collapse. Within hours, legal filings went public. Civil rights lawyers launched a coordinated action. The foundation's board scheduled an emergency vote. By 4 p.m., the chairman's resignation letter leaked. Not through official channels. Through the same anonymous account that had leaked the emails. James read the line aloud. Effective immediately. I will be stepping down to ensure the foundation can rebuild trust. Aria said nothing. Television anchors called it a turning point. Analysts debated financial fallout. Donors issued carefully worded statements about values and accountability. None of it surprised her. At 5:32 p.m., he emerged from the building for the last time as chairman. No entourage, no champagne glass, just a man walking down steps built on other people's silence. Mara intercepted him again. "Do you have anything to say to the woman you locked out of your gala?" His eyes flicked toward the camera, not toward Aria. "I have no further comment," he said. It wasn't contrition, it was defeat. Aria watched the footage replay on mute. The same marble steps, the same cameras, the same man. Different weight. James turned off the monitor. "You won." "No," she said. The system cracked. "That's not a win. That's a warning shot." Outside, the chants grew louder. The institution that once denied her entry was now dismantling itself on live television. The rope they held up against her had become their noose. Aria stood in the quiet, letting the noise outside rise. Not triumph. Not closure. Just consequence. The gate had finally fallen. The chandeliers burned brighter than they had the night she was turned away. Not because the crystals had changed, but because the room did not belong to them anymore. This time, the name on the banners was hers. Cole Foundation Annual Equity Gala. No velvet ropes dividing worth. No coded language in the invitation. No gatekeeper with a fake smile and a hidden list. The same venue. The same steps. Different power. Aria stepped out of the car without security flanking her. The air bit sharp against her skin. Cameras crowded the entrance. Flashes strobed like heat lightning. She didn't flinch. James joined her at the bottom of the steps. "The board sold the building lease to your foundation this morning. It's official." She adjusted the black collar of her suit. No gown. No symbols designed to soften her presence. "Good," she said. Inside, the ballroom pulsed with steady music. Not the sterile strings they'd once chosen, but something louder, unapologetic, alive. Voices rose and blended. Donors, activists, policymakers, young people who had been watching the story unfold on every screen. This wasn't charity. This was reckoning. Mara appeared near the staircase, notebook in hand. "Press wants 5 minutes before the speech." "They'll get it after," Aria said. James smirked. "No rehearsal?" "I've already said everything they need to hear." She crossed the floor slowly. No one looked away this time. No tight smiles or forced pleasantries. Some nodded. Some stared. Some still didn't know how to exist in a room they no longer controlled. The stage had no gold podium, no foundation seal. Just a microphone and light. Aria stepped up. The music faded. The silence was immediate, heavy, electric. She let it breathe. Let the air remember. Let every face in the room feel the weight of a moment that should never have needed to exist. 2 months ago, she said, voice low, clean, steady. I was told I didn't belong here. The sound system carried her words into every corner. They said my presence wasn't verified. That security was a concern. That optics mattered more than equity. They tried to make the gate permanent. A ripple moved through the crowd. They thought locking the door was power. But the real power was watching who stayed silent while it happened. Eyes lowered. Aria scanned the room. And tonight there's no gate. The applause didn't erupt. It grew, deliberate, rising like pressure through the floor. She didn't smile. This isn't celebration. It's proof. Proof that systems only hold when we believe in their walls. Proof that they fall when the truth doesn't blink. And proof that silence was never neutrality. It was consent. James stood against the wall, arms crossed, listening like he'd heard the words 1,000 times but knew this moment was different. Mara scribbled in her notebook, recording every line. You will remember tonight not because I was let in, Aria said. You'll remember because I stopped asking. This time the applause cracked the ceiling. Reporters swarmed forward after the speech. She gave them 5 minutes exactly as promised. They asked about the emails, the lawsuit, the resignation. She answered in clipped truths. No branding, no performance. Their downfall wasn't my victory, she told one network anchor. It was their own reflection. Outside, the building glowed gold under floodlights. A symbolic cleanup crew removed the last remnants of the old banners from the fence. James walked beside her as she stepped out for air. The night was quiet in a way it hadn't been in weeks. They're calling this your redemption arc, he said. She exhaled slowly. Redemption implies I needed fixing. I didn't. Feels like an ending, he said. It isn't. They'll rebuild somewhere else. Different names. Same hands. You'll be ready for that too. I already am. The reporters kept their distance now. Not because she asked them to. Because the center of gravity had shifted. This was no longer a story about a woman locked out of a door. It was the story of what happens when the door falls and the room belongs to someone who remembers every inch of the threshold. Aria turned to look at the ballroom one last time. The night that once humiliated her now carried her name. No gate, no permission, no apology, only consequence. The building was silent after midnight. The last of the guests had drifted into cars. The journalists had packed up their equipment. The floodlights shut down one by one, leaving the marble steps in clean shadow. Aria stood at the edge of the balcony overlooking the empty ballroom. The chandeliers hung above like still constellations. Hours earlier, this room was a storm. Now it was a wound stitched closed but not healed. James approached, voice low. Everything's wrapped. Press coverage is already on every network. He's finished. She didn't turn. I know. You should get some rest. Rest isn't what comes after this. He leaned against the railing beside her. You built something that broke them. I built something that made them show who they already were, she said. There's a difference. Down below, a single janitor crossed the marble floor, mop dragging softly. The sound echoed against the vaulted ceiling. The same space that had once echoed with quiet humiliation now carried only the scrape of cleanup. James checked his phone. Board filings are public. Lawsuits, resignations, statements. It's all moving fast. Aria's eyes stayed on the floor. Faster than what it took to live it. The silence stretched. They'll write about this like it was a victory, she said. As if everything ends neatly because one man fell. People need their clean stories, he said. I don't owe them that. Her voice stayed even. No heat, no triumph. Just wait. Mara entered quietly, recorder still hanging from her neck. We're doing a follow-up piece. They'll ask what comes next. Do you want to speak? I already have. They'll want a headline, she said. They already wrote it the night they locked me out. Mara nodded, no pushback. Good night, Aria. She left. James watched her go. You could disappear after this. Board's yours. Public's with you. No one would blame you. I didn't build this to disappear. She stepped away from the balcony, walked slowly through the ballroom. Her footsteps tapped against the same floor where her humiliation began. No velvet ropes. No whispers behind lists. No faces pretending not to see. She stopped at the main entrance. The double doors were propped open now, not guarded. Cold air spilled through the gap, cutting across her skin like the night outside the gala weeks ago. You ever think about that night? James asked behind her. I think about every detail, she said. The lights. The sound. The way the security guard didn't look me in the eye. He exhaled. And now? Now I remember it without asking for permission to be angry. Outside, the banners with her foundation's name fluttered against the night wind. They weren't victory flags. They were markers. James stepped closer. This feels like the end. It's just quieter, she said. That's not the same thing. The city hummed faintly beyond the gates. She could hear the distant thud of traffic, a siren somewhere, voices drifting from a corner. Life hadn't stopped because justice was televised. The world kept moving. She placed a hand on the cool brass of the door handle, the same one that had once held a guard's hand telling her no. This time it opened. No resistance. She walked through the doorway without slowing. James followed. Behind them, the chandeliers dimmed fully. The moment was done. The cost remained. Aria didn't look back.